want to welcome you all to another episode of Imperio Conversations, where we're breaking down wealth planning moves that entrepreneurs can make to help preserve what they've built and launch whatever's next. Today's conversation is all about exits, not the flashy headlines, but the behind the scenes planning that separates a chaotic fire sale from a strategic wealth event. And with me today is someone who specializes in just that. Bryant Ruano, one of our wealth advisors here at Imperio, and a certified exit planning advisor, also known as a CEPA. Bryant has worked closely with founders, practice owners, and family businesses across multiple industries to guide them through the sales sides process. Bryant, it's great to have you on, man.
Omar, thank you so much. This is such a privilege and an honor to be. I'm very excited to be here. This is a topic I'm extremely passionate about.
Awesome. Let's start right there. CEPA, it's not a household name like CFP or CPA. Can you break it down for those that are watching? What is a CEPA and what does it bring to the table?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, it's not something you can catch. So let's make sure that people understand that CEPA stands for Certified Exit Planning Advisor. It's a designation created specifically for professionals like me who work with business owners on exit strategies, preparation, execution, and eventually they want to exit their business, whether it's a full sale, a recap, transition to family, an ESOP, you name it. What makes it powerful is that it's not just about deal mechanics. It's about integrating the business owner's personal financial gap, tax strategy, estate goals, and business value into the holistic exit roadmap. As a wealth advisor here at Imperio, it means I'm helping clients shift their mindset from operating to actually harvesting. And we do that with structure, clarity, and a timeline that protects the client's leverage.
You know, Brian, I really love that because most owners that we come across are running hard and fast in their business. And typically the exit planning isn't really there. Usually the exit is reactive, not well planned. So what's the biggest mindset shift that they need to make in order to be successful in that liquidity event?
I don't think you could have said it any better, Omar. I think the exit is not an event, it's a process. The mind shift, one that takes years to do. If you wait until someone shows up with a letter of intent, you've already lost so much leverage. CEPA training teaches us to help business owners to become exit ready well before they ever get to the market.
Let's do a little bit of a deep dive. So if someone comes to you today and says, hey, Brian, I'm thinking of selling my business in the next few years, what happens next?
So the first thing we always want to do is establish and give a framework. We call it the 3Gs: goals, gap, and growth. We start with the personal and financial goals. What does post-exit life look like? What does it look like for you? What are you solving for? Retirement, a new venture, legacy planning? Then we identify the wealth gap. That's the difference between what their business is worth today and what it needs to be to support their personal financial independence. That's huge. Finally, we talk about how to grow and protect the value of the business between now and the exit. We do it through tax strategies, restructuring, succession planning, and investment readiness.
And you're not doing this alone, right? There's a whole team behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely. It requires a team. I'm simply the quarterback on the personal side of the wealth. But we work closely with client CPAs, the M&A advisor, the business consultant, and eventually a business broker or an investment banker. Depending on the size of the deal, that's why I mentioned the business broker or the investment banker. The biggest mistake, though, we see in when people try to sell without a coordinated team. That's how value leaks out. Through taxes, poor negotiation, and misaligned deal terms.
Okay, you mentioned value leaks. Let's talk about that. What are the most common speed bumps that you see on the sell side?
There's so many of them, but let's really narrow it down to 4. Overestimating the business value. A lot of business owners have an emotional attachment, rightfully so. They've created this as their baby and assume that their business is worth more than the market says. We help reality check that with data. Waiting too long to do tax planning. That's another big one. Once the LOI is signed, you lose flexibility. We want to do entity restructuring, trust work, QSBS, planning. QSBS is very important. That's where it takes the most time. We definitely want to make sure we do that. All of this is done in advance. Key person risk. If the company cannot run without the owner, it's not worth as much. We work on building out management, systematizing processes, and making the company transferable. Lifestyle planning gaps, another huge one. Owners often underestimate what it takes to replace the income, structure, and identity they get from the business. If we don't plan the next chapter, they feel lost after the sale. It's just simple as that.
Wow, Brian, that last one's so underrated because we've seen it. A business owner exits, has 10, 20, 40, 50, whatever the number is, $1 million in the bank. And 6 months later, they're feeling aimless. In fact, if I'm recalling correctly, I recall recently reading about the founder of Loom saying he feels lost and without purpose after selling his startup. So I guess the seller's remorse is very real.
Oh, very real. And it's exactly the point that we're trying to get to clients not to get to, their remorse. That's why exit planning is not just financial, it's deeply personal.
So for someone who's listening right now and owns a business, when should they start thinking or preparing to go about exit planning?
Ooh, the age-old question is, when should we plant a tree? I say the earlier the better. If you want good fruit, you plant it very early. If you even think about an exit in the next 5 years, you should be planning today. Even if you're 10 years out, it's about optionality. You're not locking yourself into anything. You're just putting the pieces in place to help maximize the value, reduce taxes, and preserve wealth. If you get that knock on the door, actually, with an unsolicited offer, you'll be ready. Because when you're exit ready, you can move with confidence instead of just scrambling all over the place.
Well, Brian, this has been incredibly valuable. Any final thoughts for the founder or owner who's actually still sitting on the fence?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Most exits do not happen on your terms unless you've done the preparation. Start with a conversation. Get your business valued. Understand your wealth gap. So important. Build your team. Even if you never sell, you've made the business stronger and your life more intentional. So living life without intention is usually a dangerous situation to be in. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. So much of for those that are entrepreneurs, right? So much of our effort, so much of our time, so much of our passion, our energy is poured into our business. It's only right that proper planning is done. So where can people connect with you if they want to learn more?
Well, the best way is through Imperio's website, imperiowealthadvisors.com, or connect with me directly on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect with anybody ready to have the conversation, or they simply just want to understand where they're at and what's the next step that makes sense. Simple.
Awesome. Brian, I want to thank you again for sharing so much knowledge with us today. I really appreciate you and thank you for being on.
Absolutely, Omar. It's been a true pleasure, and thank you, everyone, and take care, man. Thank you.
Thanks.